Hello, I've just been alerted that it was 3 seconds to 10, so I thought I'd better stand up, at which point. Did we hit the mark? Yes. Cool. I'm Matt Jones. I'm the Vice President of Geneva, and I'm focusing a lot of my efforts at the moment on AGL, especially when it comes to a kind of a tangible distribution that we can build on and proof of concept on and enable a community going forwards, which is kind of different from where Geneva's lying. And to kind of answer that question we had earlier, Geneva is very much focused on IVI and very much focused on all of those underlying modules that you would need that aren't necessarily in the Linux distribution, such as audio managers and layer managers. It is expanding its remit of projects to take in other open source projects, OpenXC, the smartphone modules from Ford as well. That's all coming under the Geneva banner. But its remit is slightly different from AGL, whereas AGL is free to join, free to participate. Once the mailing lists are working, Alison, I'm truly sorry about that. So it's complementary. AGL as well has ambitions to look at how Linux can be used around automotive as opposed to just an IVI system. And I know from both sides of the fence that we're working together well, which is really good. Here to talk about the demonstrator that we've produced, kind of why we did it, why some of the decisions were made, how quickly we did it, and then enable the key players in the building of that demonstrator to say what they did, why they did it, and what they will get out of it as a business as well. The AGL mission was, and quoting verbatim reading, to enable the automotive industry to successfully utilize Linux and open source technologies for product development and deployment with open collaboration and processes, with reference software and hardware, and education and practices. And really the aim of this was to have the first AGL shot at defining some reference software and reference hardware. Not to the Geneva level of you have to use this and have a compliance statement, but to enable us to build, to add to, and to create on top of a platform that's something that we can actually show at trade shows, seminars, to other people in OEMs or anywhere else on the market, and to really try and enable a community where we can build rapidly, as opposed to worrying about all of the underlying building blocks or what distribution we had. We didn't go into this blind. We thought, well, where do we want to aim for? What do the people that we're talking to, what do they actually want? And they wanted a really low cost of entry, potentially free. There weren't many people out there that were willing to buy a $1,000 box, another $1,500 of touchscreen, to go to a specific supplier, and that just wasn't where the people wanted. And we'll touch on some of the survey results in a second. They wanted it to be really easily available. And by ease of availability, it wasn't just I can find the website. It was when I download it from the website, it works straight away. And I guess that's where it's developer friendly. A lot of us in this room, yes, we're quite happy to build the kernel again or integrate some drivers, play with a lot of code to create what we're looking for. But some of the market that we're really trying to address in this, it's more of the startups, the people that don't attend the Linux conferences, that are very interested in building and demonstrating their futuristic ideas for infotainment, but not necessarily building the Linux or open source platform that you need to do that. And the main thing was that we were to provide a solution to enable rapid development, professional-looking proof of concepts to demonstrate to the community. The plan is, and this is working already, that somebody can have their idea for the next killer app in a startup anywhere on the planet, download this image, change some of the HTML5 framework, and do a smoke and mirrors demo within a couple of days. Take open source components for the rest of the stack and integrate that into something that you could do user trials on within a few weeks, as opposed to necessarily worrying about how I'm going to productize this. This is very much a platform for proof of concepts that we can add to in the future. We didn't do it blind. We had a survey. About 80, I think it's 88 people responded in total. We basically said, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, see we did this professionally with 10 being the highest, what value would you place on offering an easy-to-use download and go kit? 3 people said 1, not really interested in them. They're not going to download it anyway. That's okay. But then 70% of the people rated it an 8, 9, or a 10. And that's kind of telling. That means straight away that 70% of the 80 people that surveyed, and this survey was only open for 3 days, all IVI engineers and players in the market, they want this. And we know already from the number of downloads we're getting, the number of attacks on my Dropbox account that some of the people that got pre-releases have had, that it's proving popular. We asked them as well, what elements do you feel would be important to have included in the IVI proof of concept development? 50% of those people said a GUI framework that runs on Windows and Linux. And that's kind of telling that we're not really just after all of these Linux engineers that previously we've tried to meet the needs of. This is all the web developers, the apps developers, the people that just want to show what they can do on top of a platform, as opposed to people that care about how fast dbus is going to work and whether I need it to boot in 2 seconds or 5 minutes. It's kind of a wider audience than we've looked at previously. Similarly, 50% of the people wanted a VMware or a VirtualBox image of this, so they didn't have to buy any hardware. And we did some interviews afterwards, and there's lots of people, they kind of want to create the graphics in Windows, get it up and running in a Chrome browser, translate that into a virtual machine, understand how that works and plays with Linux, get it all up and running, and then contemplate what they can do with it next. And that kind of tells you a little about the mindset that they just want to show it. They want to show it in the open source and show it to us and part of the community. They necessarily don't have the background that we've had in some of the other alliances organizations. 80%, almost 77.4% of people wanted the downloadable image that they can flash to a box, DD it straight across. That's kind of telling as well that we're not necessarily got the people responding who want to go and build the entire kernel or integrate the drivers. 70% of people wanted the suggested hardware to be easily obtained and off the shelf. And there were some other comments that specific requests. But on the actual hardware, and this is the last one of the questions I'll go through, 88% of people wanted us to specify the main unit including CPU. Lots of comments on there that they wanted it to be to work with a standard laptop. So if they didn't want to go and buy the hardware, they could just make it run on the spare desktop they had from a few years ago. 71% of people wanted a touchscreen. 60% of people wanted a CAN adapter so that they could start to interface this to vehicle networks. And when we drilled down on that as well, they wanted it to be really easy to use. They didn't want to understand what CAN frames were or what speed the CAN bus was on a BMW or a Jaguar or any other vehicle or Toyota. It was a case of, I just want to be able to get access to the CAN bus and the data on it as opposed to worrying about why. 47% of people wanted GPS. 60% of people wanted Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. 44% of people wanted a camera interface. About 35% of people wanted the AM/FM tuner. These are options that we gave, and that's kind of telling as well. If anybody's seen the demo boards that you've had previously for IVI, a lot of them, they've always got a radio tuner on there, and there weren't many demos that ever were created. And when we drill down on this, people really want something that's simple, they can get up and running quickly, that's more akin to a platform, like we've done downstairs and just put it in the trunk of the vehicle, rather than something that they can even worry about if it's going to meet compliance or automotive in the future. It's really a platform to get up and running on. So we took the results of this, and we kind of came up with these 3 versions of the download that we're looking for. If we take a pseudo stack of an example graphical user interface, the bit that you can show to your boss and say, this is what we've done. The HMI framework, how you can easily create that. Middleware, operating system, drivers, and hardware. The first element of the download was really, how can we enable people to play with these graphics and play with this HTML5 on any platform? Could be Windows, could be Linux, could be a Mac, doesn't really matter. And I think Rudy's working at getting those up at the moment, and I've sent out the Dropbox link to the announce list in the last few minutes, so everybody has access to those graphics. They can play with those today without even touching Linux if they don't want to. They're up there. Fantastic. Cool. So the PSD files and everything, they're all up on the site, and you can look at that, edit it, change it. The demo at the moment, you'll notice, is portrait. You can make it landscape. You can put it on 4 displays. It's open. It's out there.
Actually, sorry, they're at the contest site. They're not at the download.
Yeah. So we're just tidying up some of those links on the site, and please, you know, hassle Rudy. It's his full-time ambition to be hassled by all of us to make this the best community ever. The second download that we're in the process of producing, and we haven't done this yet, is the virtual machine image, so that you can download VMware Player or anything else and just get that up and running rapidly. And finally, and this is there, the complete system image, including all the CAN drivers and everything built in. The media player that's come from Teleca that they'll be talking about later, that's there. You can go and download that today, install and run it. When we decided what to, or we were looking at what to do, we had some conversations. How do people actually want to create these graphical user interface on the top? And by a margin, people requested Java HTML5, which is kind of expected. It's supported in Tizen, and Tizen was the reference platform designate when AGL formed last year. And Tizen OS was the requested operating system. And this was kind of good as well, because we'd already got a big development on that we could give out to the open source. And I worked at Jaguar Land Rover with Intel to add to their previous demo, to create the graphics, and to release that rapidly. And then the hardware. This was specified as a cheap box we found from Nexcom that was available in Japan and Europe and North America, an NDIS hardware. I think it costs about $400. Plus a solid-state drive that you can add yourself, or a hard drive. And it was very cost-effective. We specified on the site as well all of the rest of the hardware we used. And you can buy the complete set of hardware, including CAN adapters and touchscreens. I think it comes to just under $1,200. It's normally, well, at the moment, on the NDIS boxes, they've sold quite a few in the last few weeks. There's a couple of week wait time, but they're getting more shipped in from Taiwan as we speak. Before we kind of go on to Magnus and the guys for what we did, do we have any questions on kind of why we did it or what we've done before we go into the technical?
I wonder if you have any thoughts about long-term support. You know, if you're using Intel chips, for example, from my point of view as a developer, there's been a problem with graphics drivers and longevity of their availability. You know, a big pain point for automotive is the mismatch in time scale. Traditional Linux development. Does EGL have any plans to help with that difficult point?
What I kind of say is that this isn't a product. This is a platform for today that will hopefully evolve, and in 3 months' time it will look something completely different. And 3 months after that it'll be even bigger and even better. And this isn't really about choosing a chipset to support for AGL long-term, or even suggesting that people go to market with a product based on Intel or whatever else we've got in there. It's really, how can we find something on the market that we can say, yeah, this is cost effective, this works, we can build this on now as a starting point, and we can go forwards. And I'd really like to see somebody from NVIDIA give the same support that we managed to get from Intel and say, actually, we're the experts in graphics, not Intel. Here's a graphical user interface, and here's the tooling that enables you to generate 3D graphics. Or for Mentor Graphics to come forwards and say, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and we're going to build on that, and we're going to enable 3 operating systems. And that's kind of okay as well, but I'm not going to push it. If people want to contribute stuff, that's good. And just as we said yesterday, this isn't about a system where we have a 4-year plan. I'm not putting this into a car. This is about how can we show stuff today, how can we improve the user experience and demonstrate it to the world. And you know, there's tomorrow for productionization. We've got entire armies of people ready to take a concept and productionize it. So that's my perspective on it. I'm not saying it's the AGL one, but this is a starting point, not even the start of a roadmap. It's just a starting point. It might turn into a roadmap, but let's just keep it running and see what happens. Does that answer the question? Cool. Do we have any other questions before we go on to Magnus? Nope, looks like you're up. Thanks very much.